Now, I think it's like around me are people who are hopeful for the future. There are so many people who are afraid of what's going to happen in a couple of years that they are working on moving out of country. We have people who are of a, I need to get out of this land of ours, to go to another place where it feels better than here. Now, that's a good thing, right? We like to be global, or be able to move around, but in our hearts, we know that there is a guide here who's going to come through strong for the females of this world, right? We have females who are being criticized for being a victim of a crime. Now, if you were a male and you were victimized as a child, would you be having the same expression as a guide? I would say you could. You might be one of those people that would say, I might have a little bit more sympathy for the family of those around them as well. So, my arrangement is for Brenda to express some of the experiences she herself sees in this world and identifies with. So we were able to identify as a female of a certain persuasion who had a experience that was not remotely like what some people do. She will admit, as a child, in the acceptance of that energy, right? How far does it have to go before the traumas of it sinks in? She felt okay. She wasn't traumatized by it. It stuck with her for a long time. It started the ball rolling in her mind of not being able to talk to people. So now we're going to talk about the victim ideas of empathy, because people are going to hear that and get upset, because it's also a very important distinction to make between those who are able to use it to help others. And that's the thing. At some point, what happens is there are so many people who are able to use this gift of empathy, the gift of empathy, right? It's a gift. And it's also identifying with your own soul as I'm able to experience your pain because I myself am either of it, like I went through that, and so I know in my own mind what it's like and for me, or I am sympathetic enough to try to put myself in the shoes of someone and say, if I was them and I went through that process that they're going through. I'm not a gift if I feel like it is hurting me. So we have this idea of empathy as a gift and as a curse, right? That's Brenda came in with the curse part because that's what everyone says, the gift and the curse. Really? How about the shadow part of it? Now people don't like to hear, but she's coming up with that. I'm not going to call it the shadow because people think, oh, it's bad. The shadow's not bad. It's the victimhood behind it. Now, what do we say? It's people's ideas of the victim mindset or survival instincts, right? We say, this can help me in my world or my job. I am good being able to put myself in someone else's shoes and say, good God, let me help you. I have other tools that can help an empath. Now, one of the tools of empathy is raising your own vibration, okay? And to do that, you need to be able to look at your own pain and suffering first before you go out and start work. Most people don't. Most people have this sense of I am of a being that has guides. No, most people don't even feel their guides. They may experience guidance in the form of, being of God or Buddha or whoever it is that they have assigned as their higher power. That is their guide. And so they follow the teachings of them. We're not aiming our heart to heart to those of that faith, because that's your beautiful expression of guidance, is by looking to the source of your soul, right? So your soul is saying, I look to Christ or to God or whatever. And however you get that information is wonderful for you. However, as someone who's experienced the guidance of a channel and more, and understands the idea of empathy being beautiful in the way in which we can then put ourselves in the position of helping others. And so when we come through and say that I'm not an empath, it means that at a certain level, you want to take off that label, because it's going to set you up in this world, right? We talked about that. If I'm putting that on me, what are most people using? So most people use the empath word as it's like a plant. You're planting the seeds for others. Do I want to be labeled as an empath? Really? Do I want to be able to put myself in other people's shoes? Do you understand what that means? It means you can no longer hate anybody from a higher level of understanding of it. So, if we're in that spot where we say, I am an empath, we've also transcended our own selves in a way in which we get to open up to the ideas of, now I'm taking on energy from others, even outside of my own area. I can open up to other guidance from other dimensions. That's channeling. It's more than that, though. The empathy is part of it that allows you to open up to that. Okay? It can be used, if you are an empath and you say, now I want to channel, or now I want to open up to my guides, and if they don't quite feel right, what does that do to your mind? You are now in the position of you're saying, I'm going to be attacked by some negative entity. Don't identify as an empath, and then as soon as you do, you say, oh, I am great, I'm sensitive to energy, therefore I am sensitive to other dimensions. This is her experience of it. I can feel things, and I have for a long time, but it wasn't until years ago. Now, I experienced things, but not on the physicality and on the physical level that I do with guides. So what it means is that if you think that children should be opening up their ideas about empathy in a way in which they themselves say, I want to open up that channel of guidance. So as a child, we would say, let's develop their empathy, right? It's sensitivities to others, the sympathy, right? It's a little bit different. It's not sympathy, because you're feeling, it's mostly sympathy. It's mostly sympathy. Now, it doesn't mean I feel sorry for you or pity. That's a different thing. Sympathy means that I'm feeling it in my heart for you, and I understand you're going through something. There's nothing wrong with the word sympathy. So yeah, there's a lot of sympathy in this world, but for some reason people are taking that as a negative. And so we have this leveling, right, of words and vibrations, right? But it's not like you want to go there all the time. I would not wish an empath energy on any child at this point in time. Do you know what? Why? They have no idea how to deal with it. What are they surrounded by? Think carefully. So we're talking about this idea about putting empathy training in schools. Everyone's like, yes, we need more people to feel good. About who? Now, it's inclusive. We're trying to be inclusive of everybody, and that's a beautiful thing. The problem is that we seem to now know in the area of children what's best for them. So let's take them in our heart, in our arms, hold them to ourselves and say, you are now energetically sensitive to everyone around you. What does that do to them? Now they take on the other people's burdens. Good God. We don't want to do that. So, for those that are highly sensitive to their surroundings, there's a reason for that. They came here naturally, but now we're trying to teach it at a young age. Now, what does that say to the adults of the world? We have to teach empathy. Why? Because our own ideas about what's right and wrong are not being fostered in the system at home, right? So we're cluing in. I am a guide for my family. I guide my children. Do you want to know how to guide your children out of the There is a source here that's so strong in her right now. So she'll kick it back. This is her guide. Arranging for the soul of Brenda to come through. She doesn't want to come through though, but it's true. We're kind of saying that we're leaving it up to the schools to decide who gets to feel for others. So in some way, it's a beautiful thing. People are going to take this the wrong way because they're going to think, oh, she's saying, you know, that there's something bad with empathy. And it's just a different level of it. But because of the nature of the spirituality and the way in which empaths are being portrayed in that community of, you know, I am blessed and cursed. So why are we teaching this within the schools? So there's a psychological component of it as well. Okay, that's being used in the school system, and it's becoming more and more aware of energy. And so that's good. But why are we doing it at such an early age where we are hopeful that the younger generations are going to what? What are they supposed to do with that information? I now feel bad for everybody? Or do I only feel bad for certain people? You see, there's a problem with the idea of empathy in that most people, you're picking and choosing who gets to feel what. If you are saying that empathy means that I feel bad for people, anyone that hurts, you're going to hurt. You're going to hurt for everybody that's hurt. You're going to feel for them. You're going to open your heart. That's a good thing. Let's open our hearts to people. Now, maybe that's why we're thinking in our minds, the schools are trying to develop it. We're trying to, children are naturally open to others. It's when they are told not to, that then the soul starts to come in and close down. Why is it my open heart? Children learn to close off their hearts. Now, there's a protective energy in that. So we're trying to protect our children on one hand by keeping them controlled and open at the same time. So let's open our hearts to the souls of everybody. And that's the goal, really, truly. If you think about it, let's open our hearts to everybody. But the problem is that in that expression, we are then saying wherever they go outside of school, they're supposed to be open. But why? We're now saying let's stir the pot, right? Let's raise the vibration a little bit. So we feel like empathy is a raising of the vibration. It absolutely is if you know what you're doing with it. If you are not aware of what this energy is, you have to let it go. If you don't know how to open your heart without, you collide with others. And so if I am a guide and I say I am empathic, it means I can open my heart to others, and now I'm going to take on their burdens. Okay? Do we really want to take on the burdens? Because think carefully. What does that set up in our minds? Now, some people may decide to put the barriers on it and say, this is for you to understand on a mental level. I'm an empath. I will mentally put myself in someone else's shoes. But will I then embody the energy of it? Will I take that in as my own experience of it? Because even as an empath, your experience of another is not going to be like theirs exactly, unless you're channeling or have. There are people who can do empathic being. There are empathic beings who only experience their guidance as gifts. And they don't see it as the curse. And they know they're open to the beauty of expressing their hearts to everybody. But it's often not seen in that sense. We don't, there's many groups that it's become a source of victimhood. So we have to realize that as children grow up, and if they start going, I have a higher sensitivity, maybe I should look it up or whatever, what are we going to find? Those people who say, now I have to put up the barriers because of my own energy. We need to define it in a way in which we just open the energy to the guide. The guide of empathy. Who's the guide of empathy? We talked about that. Do you know there is a guide for her who can arrange for that experience of empathy to come in? And it's because it's in her soul expression. She has a soul that has that as it's a higher vibration energy, and she knows what it means. She understands that the heart becomes open, and it's why she has a hard time reaching that point in her life. Because you would then be outside of yourself enough to know that that's not your energy, but you could put yourself there, and then you could pull yourself back out of it. How many people can do that? You have to be able to go in, take it, this is this man as a guide. Jesus, right? What would you say to him? I am of an empath energy. He would not know what you were talking about. So this is something that's relatively new in the ideas of this vision that we have for our family and friends. Most people won't go that far with this. So let's think about what it is that we're talking about. Arrangements for guidance. Arrangements for guidance. So if you are an empath and you're looking for a source that is strong, she would guide you to two different resources for empathic beings. One is more for the understanding of what the real higher vibration of empathy is, in a sense, where you are actually able to take on the being of another and feel the blending of their energy in a way in which you feel their actual emotions. Now, you have no idea what it's like to create that situation, because in your mind it is of a blending. We're not literally, our auras, we're recycling our energy all the time, so we can get rid of anything we don't want. We don't have to let go of the guide. We can blend all, well,